What's going on, motivators? We got another video. Let's talk about the Supreme Court of California just shutting down Sheriff Bianco's investigation into all that fraud from last November's election. Let's get into this.
Bianco had talked about what he was doing, what he was looking into. Well, it wasn't until this week, AG Rob Bonta tells us that they learned that Bianco and his office had already started seizing an additional 426 more boxes of voter material. That's in addition to 1,000 boxes they had already received.
Law enforcement should not be involved in overseeing elections or counting ballots. That is not their role.
In the latest pushback to Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco's claims of potential election fraud, claims that are so far unsubstantiated, local leaders of the Inland Empire are calling on his department to return more than 650,000 ballots they seized last month. The move coming one day.
I mean, everybody keeps saying that it is not for his department to do it, but who else is doing it? Everything in California is just being left unchecked, right? Fraud is rampant in the state of California, rampant in every sector of government.
Well, a setback today for Republican gubernatorial candidate and Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco.
The California Supreme Court puts the brakes on Bianco's controversial ballot investigation, at least for now.
Well, CBS LA political reporter Tom Wade is here live with the court's temporary ruling and the release of the criminal warrants used to get the ballots done.
Is it controversial if we're trying to figure out what went wrong with the election? Isn't it the electors' mission and duties to make sure that we, the people who are voting, or the constituents, feel that everything is going fair? But remember, California, all we have to do is show our little hands and say that we are who we say we are, and that will suffice for an ID.
Right, and it is interesting because these ballots, the warrants were sealed, and we didn't get a look at them until now. We'll go through some of the details in those warrants in just a second here. But tonight, Governor Newsom on X praising the court's ruling, saying, quote, another destructive MAGA election scheme thrown out. Bianco firing back, posting, reading.
Of course, Governor Newsom's going to post that it's a scheme. But what did he do to try to fix anything? For all we know, he doesn't even believe that there's anything going on. But we're in California. This is a big machine. It runs itself, right? I'm pretty sure whoever the machine picks to lead California is who they're going to say is going to lead. And remember, there have not been a Republican in 14 years handling California. Hence, it is the mess that it is today. It's just going downhill. With Newsom, one of the worst governors in California so far, pure failure. With all the money and fraud that's going down right under his nose. But yet all this fraud is still rampant right now. That you had Nick Shirley had to come in and cover some of it.
Comprehension isn't Gavin's specialty. Tonight, we still don't know where the ballots are and where Bianco and when Bianco may release them. California's Supreme Court orders Riverside County Sheriff and GOP candidate for governor Chad Bianco to stop his controversial ballot investigation.
Again, why would a court not tell him to stop? The Supreme Court of California is pretty much controlled by the Democrats. It's liberal run. Everything that they want to be done in the state right now is pretty much upheld. California is a mess. New leadership is needed. And hopefully it will not be Eric Swalwell with what he has going on right now.
Views the case. In a video posted on Facebook, Bianco says he's confident the court will ultimately allow his count to continue.
We will have arguments presented to them for the merits of our case and for them to basically, eventually, what we're very confident they will allow us to continue this investigation despite the Attorney General's attempts to cover it up.
Sheriff, who has a history of repeating President Trump's false claims about election fraud, ordered 650,000 ballots seized from last fall's Prop 50 special election based on accusations from a citizens group with a history of election denialism that there were 45,000 questionable ballots. The Riverside County Register.
If it was brought up by a citizen group that questionable ballots would not be part of the electors' mission to try to figure out what's going on, but they just let it slide beneath the radar. Like, it's nothing to see here. So who knows? There might be some fraud in there for real. We don't know. The best thing to do is to go ahead and check it and to verify. But the electors don't want to. Hence the Supreme Court saying to stop.
Registrar reported 0 issues with the tabulation. Along with the court's ruling, the criminal warrants used to justify the ballot seizure were unsealed, officially confirming Bianco used the questionable numbers from the citizens group to obtain the ballots. Rick Hassan is one of the nation's top legal experts on election law.
The fact that the warrants allege a felony and it's based only upon unreliable statements of a so-called voter integrity group that have been proven to be false shows just how thin.
Well, we say it's unreliable. How about we find some reliable sources? You could see the nonchalant in how people are talking in California. It's like nothing to see here mentality. If there's a big question about voter fraud, you would think you want to investigate into it. But California, like I said, just nothing to see here.
The evidence was.
Bianco already put the count on pause late last month after State Attorney General Rob Bonta took the case to the state Supreme Court. But we learned through the unsealed warrants that before Bianco halted the ballot count, that 22 boxes were opened and the ballots contained within the boxes were counted. The total number of ballots counted from the 22 boxes was at most 12,561.
Well, the cynic.
That's a lot of ballots to be counted. But the thing is, what did they find from those 12,000, if anything positive yet?
He thinks that the sheriff's office knew that this was a bogus claim, but it's great publicity to be able to seize ballots, especially when the sheriff is running for governor and is trying to attract votes of Trump-allied Republicans who believe that there's a lot of voter fraud.
Over the course.
Here is a downplay of Democrats over and over again, that there is a lot of claims of voter fraud. My point on this is something simple. There should not be any voter fraud, period. Doesn't matter one. One voter fraud disenfranchises someone else's vote. There should be 0 voter fraud. For every one vote that we find, it disenfranchises someone else's vote. So the idea of just saying it's not that many or it's not that much, one is too many. One is too much. There should be 0 fraud when it comes to voting.
Of the last couple of weeks, including today, we've made multiple requests for interviews with Sheriff Bianco. We've either been told he's not available or we have been ignored. Those unsealing of the warrants came from a lawsuit from a number of media organizations, including us. Also, another tidbit here, President Trump endorsed the other Republican that's pulling in the top, Steve Hilton, for governor, not Chad Bianco. So a rough week so far for.
Let's not forget, when it comes to the voter rolls and who could vote and who cannot, if there is small fraud, that there are many elections that have been won with less than 100 votes. We all remember the presidential election between Bush and Gore in Florida. It was minuscule votes, right? So all those things matter. Elections should be fair. Voter rolls should be clean. No one should be voting if they're not supposed to. So 0 fraud. All right, guys, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with Sheriff Bianco, whether or not the Supreme Court of California is going to allow him to recount those ballots. All right, motivators, if you like what you heard and seen, please like, comment, subscribe, and share a Black Veterans Perspective. Stay motivated.